The kitchen aboard the Galactic Federation research vessel Harmony's Edge had never seen anything like this before. Dr. Zix Thara watched from behind a protective barrier as the human female named Lisa Parker moved around the cooking area with terrifying confidence. Her 6 eyes tracked every movement while her scanning equipment beeped warnings that grew more urgent by the minute. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood nearby, completely relaxed as if nothing dangerous was happening. This confused Dr. Zix Thara even more. Either the humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Given what she knew about their home planet Earth, she was starting to think it might be both. "We're really excited to share our food culture with you," Lisa said, smiling as she pulled out a small red object. "I thought I'd start with something simple, maybe some pasta with a nice sauce." The moment Lisa touched the red thing, every alarm in the kitchen started screaming. Dr. Zix Thara's assistant, a nervous creature called Pip Talk, nearly fell off his observation perch. "Warning. Concentrated capsaicin compound detected. Biological. Warfare agent identified." The ship's computer announced in its calm voice that somehow made everything sound worse. Lisa looked up, confused. "Oh, this? It's just a bell pepper. Pretty mild one, too." She began cutting it into strips, releasing more of the chemical that had their sensors going crazy. Dr. Zix Thara quickly checked her readings. The levels of capsaicin were high enough to cause serious pain to most Federation species. Some of her colleagues would need medical treatment just from breathing the air near that pepper. Yet the human was handling it with her bare hands like it was nothing. "Computer, scan the human female for signs of chemical exposure," Dr. Zix Thara ordered. "Scan. Complete. Subject shows no signs of distress, pain, or tissue damage despite direct contact with biological irritant." Jake laughed. "Lisa's got tough hands from years of cooking. You should see her handle really hot peppers." "Really hot peppers?" Dr. Zix Thara made a note to never, ever see that. Lisa reached for a small brown bottle and poured some liquid into a measuring cup. The computer immediately went into another panic. "Alert. Ethanol solution detected. Concentration sufficient for industrial cleaning purposes." "It's vanilla extract," Lisa explained, adding it to a bowl. "Just a teaspoon for flavor." Dr. Zix Thara watched in horror as the human casually consumed what her people used to clean laboratory equipment. The concentration was low but still dangerous to most Federation species. How were these creatures still alive? Things got worse when Lisa opened a container of white crystals and began pouring them into her mixture. "Danger. Sodium chloride detected. In toxic concentrations. Immediate medical attention recommended for any exposure." "Salt," Jake explained helpfully. "We use it on everything." "Everything?" Dr. Zix Thara's hearts were beating so fast she thought she might pass out. The humans were not just immune to one poison. They were immune to many poisons and used them to make their food taste better. Lisa moved to the cooking surface and turned on the heat. She added some chopped white bulbs to a pan with oil. Within seconds, the air filled with a sharp, strong smell that made Dr. Zix Thara's breathing tubes burn. "Emergency! Emergency! Sulfur compounds detected. Atmospheric contamination in progress." The computer's voice was getting louder and more worried. Pip Talk was making small crying sounds. 2 other researchers had already left the observation area. But Lisa just stirred the white pieces around in the pan like nothing was wrong. "Onions," she said cheerfully. "The base of so many good dishes." The smell got stronger. Dr. Zix Thara's eyes were starting to water, and she was standing behind a sealed barrier with air filters. How was the human breathing normally? "Computer, emergency protocol 7. Seal all air vents and prepare chemical neutralization systems." "Acknowledged. Initiating containment procedures." Jake looked around as metal shields started coming down over the air vents. "Is everything okay? We can open a window if the smell is too strong." "Too strong? This was a chemical attack." Dr. Zix Thara was about to call for a full evacuation when something even worse happened. Lisa added more ingredients to her pan, and the computer lost its mind completely. Class 4 chemical warfare alert. Multiple biological agents detected. Recommend immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel. Red lights started flashing. Emergency alarms rang throughout the ship. In the distance, Dr. Zixthera could hear the security team running toward their location. Lisa looked confused as she stirred her pan of what the computer insisted was weapons-grade poison. Did I do something wrong? This is just garlic and herbs. The security team burst through the doors wearing full hazmat suits and carrying chemical detection equipment. Their leader, Captain Vortex, scanned the area with his instrument. Readings are off the charts, he shouted through his helmet. How are the humans still conscious? Jake waved at them. Hey there, we're just making dinner. Want to try some when it's ready? Captain Vortex took 3 steps backward. They're offering to share the chemical weapons. Dr. Zixthera realized she needed to understand what was happening before someone got hurt. She activated the communication system. Humans, please stop all food preparation activities immediately. Our safety systems indicate you are creating dangerous chemical compounds. Lisa turned off the heat and looked worried. I'm so sorry, I had no idea your equipment was so sensitive. This is really basic cooking. Basic cooking? Dr. Zixthera stared at her readings again. If this was basic, what did advanced human cooking look like? She didn't want to know. Jake stepped closer to the observation window. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This stuff isn't dangerous to us. We eat it every day. Every day. Dr. Zixthera felt faint. These creatures consumed chemical weapons every single day and considered it normal. No wonder their planet was classified as a death world. The inhabitants had to be chemical weapons themselves just to survive. Emergency council meeting, she whispered to Pip Talk. Now. As the research team hurried away, Lisa looked at her half-prepared meal and sighed. I guess we're ordering pizza tonight, she told Jake. Behind them, the computer continued its warnings about atmospheric contamination, while the security team tried to figure out how to safely clean up what they were convinced was the scene of a chemical warfare incident. Federation Safety Inspector Kelnara arrived on the Harmony's Edge 3 hours after what the crew was now calling the kitchen incident. She was a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and equipment that could detect dangerous chemicals from across the room. Dr. Zixthera met her at the docking bay with a full report. They claim it was food preparation, Dr. Zixthera explained as they walked toward the sealed kitchen area. But our readings show chemical warfare levels of toxic compounds. Kelnara checked her scanner. I can still detect traces of sulfur compounds in the air. How long has this area been under containment? Since yesterday, we've been running air purifiers non-stop. They found Jake Morrison and Lisa Parker waiting in the dining area next to the kitchen. Both humans looked tired but not sick, which confused Kelnara even more. Anyone else would be in the medical bay by now. Thank you for coming, Jake said, standing up to greet them. We really want to clear this up. Lisa feels terrible about causing problems. Lisa nodded. I had no idea your equipment was so sensitive. Maybe I can try making something really simple this time? Kelnara's scanner started beeping just from being near Lisa. You still have chemical residue on your skin, she said, stepping back. Oh, that's probably from the garlic, Lisa said, looking at her hands. It sticks around for a while. I should have worn gloves. Garlic. Kelnara checked her database. The compound allicin was classified as a biological weapon in 12 different Federation territories. You touch this garlic substance with your bare skin? Sure. I cook with it all the time. Kelnara made notes on her report pad. These humans were either incredibly brave or their nervous systems worked very differently from everyone else's. Let me try something really basic, Lisa said, moving toward the kitchen. How about bread? Just bread with some butter and garlic. Nothing fancy. No, Dr. Zixthera said quickly. No more garlic compounds, Lisa thought for a moment. Okay, just bread and butter then, and maybe some herbs to make it smell nice. She pulled out a long, crusty piece of bread and began slicing it. Then she opened a yellow container and started spreading something on each slice. Dairy product detected, Kelnara's scanner announced. High fat content. Potential for spoilage and bacterial contamination. It's just butter, Lisa said. Fresh from the store. Fresh? Kelnara's people didn't eat anything that could spoil. The idea of consuming something that went bad over time seemed insane. Lisa reached for small bottles filled with green powder. The moment she opened the first one, Kelnara's equipment went crazy. Multiple essential oils detected. Aromatic hydrocarbon compounds. Biological warfare agents. Rosemary, Lisa said, sprinkling the green powder on the bread. And some thyme, too. She opened a second bottle. The scanner's beeping got even faster. These compounds are used in industrial cleaning on my homeworld, Kelnara said, staring at her readings. How do you not die from breathing them? They smell good, Lisa said simply. Food should smell good. While Lisa worked, maintenance worker Pete Collins entered the dining area carrying a large metal container. Thought you folks might want some coffee, he said cheerfully. The word coffee meant nothing to Kelnara, but her scanner certainly understood what Pete was carrying. Alert! Psychoactive stimulant detected. Class A controlled substance. Concentration exceeds legal limits. Pete looked confused. It's just coffee. Want some? He poured the dark liquid into a small cup and took a big drink. Kelnara watched in horror as he consumed what her scanner said was enough caffeine to put her entire species in the hospital. How much of that do you drink? She asked. Oh, maybe 4 or 5 cups a day, Pete said. Can't function without it. Can't function without it. Pete was admitting to being dependent on a powerful drug, and he seemed proud of it. Dr. Zixthera pointed at Pete's cup. Computer. Analyze the compound consumption rate. Analysis complete. Subject has consumed stimulants equivalent to a Class 3 combat enhancement drug. No signs of toxicity or abnormal behavior detected. Lisa's bread was starting to smell. The aroma filled the air with what Kelnara's equipment identified as dozens of different chemical compounds. Some were used as cleaning agents. Others were restricted medical supplies. A few weren't in the database at all. That smells amazing, Jake said, taking a deep breath. Amazing? Kelnara's breathing filters were working overtime just to keep the compounds out of her system. Lisa pulled her bread from the heating unit and set it on a plate. The golden slices were covered in melted butter and green herbs. Steam rose from them, carrying more chemical warnings. Would you like to try some? Lisa asked. Every creature in the room except the humans took a step backward. We appreciate the offer, Dr. Zixthera said carefully, but our biology is different from yours. Different how? Jake asked. Kelnara decided to be direct. Your bread contains compounds that would cause severe illness in most Federation species. The herbs alone could put someone in intensive care. Lisa looked shocked. But they're just herbs. People have been using them for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Kelnara realized something important. Your species has been consuming these chemical compounds for thousands of years? Oh yeah, Pete said, pouring himself another cup of coffee. Probably longer. My grandmother used to grow her own herbs. Dr. Zixthera was starting to understand. Computer, how long would it take for a species to develop immunity to multiple toxic compounds through evolutionary exposure? Estimating, approximately 10 to 50,000 years, depending on compound complexity and exposure frequency. 50,000 years. These humans hadn't just survived on a death world. They had been eating chemical weapons for so long that their bodies had learned to process them safely. They weren't trying to poison anyone. They literally couldn't survive. Without compounds that would kill everyone else, I think, Kelnara said slowly. We need to completely rethink what we know about human biology. Lisa took a bite of her bread and smiled. This turned out pretty good. Sure you don't want to try? Just a tiny piece? The scanner in Kelnara's hand was still beeping warnings about atmospheric contamination, biological agents, and potential chemical warfare. But now she understood that none of it was intentional. The humans were just being themselves, which apparently was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Inspector Kelnara thought she had seen the worst of human food preparation. She was wrong. Maybe we should try something completely different, Dr. Zixthera suggested the next morning. Something that doesn't involve cutting or heating or strong smells. Lisa brightened up. Oh, I could bake something. Baking is much gentler than cooking. How about chocolate chip cookies? Everyone loves those. The word chocolate wasn't in any Federation database, but Jake's smile made Dr. Zixathera nervous. When humans looked that happy about food, bad things usually happen to alien safety equipment. Lisa gathered her supplies while Kelnara set up new monitoring devices around the kitchen. I've upgraded our sensors, she explained. They should give us better warnings. Warnings about cookies? Lisa laughed. They're totally harmless. My grandmother used to make them for me when I was little. The first alarm went off when Lisa opened a package of yellow blocks. High-energy lipid matrix. Detected. Concentrated fat compounds capable of aerosol dispersal. It's butter, Lisa said patiently. I need to cream it with sugar. She put the butter in a large bowl and added white crystals. Then she picked up an electric mixer and turned it on. The kitchen filled with a loud whirring sound as the mixer worked. Kelnara watched her scanners in growing horror as the readings climbed higher and higher. Crystalline compounds being mechanically weaponized. Aerosol formation detected. She's making the dangerous crystals fly through the air, Piptalk whispered. On purpose. Lisa turned off the mixer and looked at her work. The butter and sugar had turned into a fluffy, light mixture that looked innocent enough. But Kelnara's equipment was still beeping warnings about airborne particles. Now for the vanilla, Lisa said, reaching for the same brown bottle that had caused problems before. Wait! Dr. Zixathera called out. You said that was ethanol. Just a little bit, Lisa said, adding 2 spoonfuls to her mixture. It makes everything taste better. Kelnara's new sensors were much more sensitive than the old ones. They immediately identified not just the alcohol, but dozens of other compounds in the vanilla extract. Multiple organic solvents detected, industrial-grade extraction chemicals, potential for nervous system damage. Lisa cracked 2 eggs into her bowl. The scanner found more things to worry about. Biological contamination risk, potential salmonella, carriers, raw protein matrices. They're just eggs, Lisa said. From chickens. Dr. Zixathera made a note to research what chickens were later. If they produced something this dangerous, they were probably weapons too. Lisa reached for a bag of brown powder and poured some into a measuring cup. The moment it hit the air, every alarm in the kitchen started screaming. Theobromine detected. Toxic alkaloid compound, lethal to most carbon-based life forms. Kelnara nearly dropped her scanner. That's poison. It's cocoa powder, Lisa said, stirring it into her mixture. For chocolate flavor. Chocolate was poison. Dr. Zixathera quickly cross-referenced theobromine in the medical database. It was toxic to dozens of Federation species. Even small amounts could cause heart problems, seizures, or death. How are you not afraid of this? She asked. Lisa shrugged. I've been eating chocolate my whole life. It's one of my favorite things. Her whole life. This human had been consuming a known toxin since childhood and considered it a treat. Computer. Scan the human female for signs of theobromine poisoning. Scan complete. Subject shows signs of chronic low-level exposure, but no adverse effects. Metabolism appears adapted to process compounds safely. Lisa added flour to her bowl, then reached for a bag of small dark chunks. Kelnara's heart sank as she realized what was coming next. More chocolate? She whispered. Chocolate chips, Lisa said happily. The best part, she poured what looked like hundreds of tiny poison pellets into her mixture and stirred them in. Each chip was loaded with enough theobromine to harm most Federation citizens, and Lisa was adding them like decorations. I need to preheat the oven, Lisa said, turning on the large heating unit. As the temperature climbed, new warnings appeared on Kelnara's screens. High-temperature chemical processing initiated. Maillard reaction in progress. Unknown compound formation detected. What's a Maillard reaction? Piptalk asked nervously. Kelnara checked her database. It's what happens when sugars and proteins are heated together. It creates hundreds of new chemical compounds. Hundreds? Most of which have never been tested for safety, Kelnara added grimly. Lisa was spooning her mixture onto metal sheets, making small mounds of what the computer insisted was a complex chemical weapon. She slid the sheets into the hot oven and set a timer. 20 minutes, and we'll have fresh cookies, she said. 20 minutes of high-temperature chemical processing. Kelnara watched her scanners as the oven worked. New compounds were forming every minute. Some matched things in the database. Others were completely unknown. She's creating new forms of matter, Dr. Zixthera said in amazement. In her spare time. For fun. The smell started after 10 minutes. It was sweet and warm and made Kelnara's sensors go completely insane. Warning messages scrolled across her screens too fast to read. Jake walked into the kitchen and took a deep breath. Smells great in here. Nothing beats fresh cookies. Engineer Tony Rodriguez appeared in the doorway carrying his own supplies. Hey, if we're baking, mind if I make some cinnamon rolls? I've got some dough rising in my quarters. Cinnamon rolls. Kelnara didn't know what those were, but she was sure she didn't want to find out. What cinnamon? She asked weakly. Tony held up a bottle of brown powder. Spice made from tree bark. Really good stuff. Tree bark. They were eating tree bark. Kelnara ran a quick scan on Tony's bottle. The results made her sit down. Cinnamaldehyde. Detected. Antimicrobial compound. Industrial preservative. It keeps food fresh and tastes amazing, Tony said, not seeming worried that he was carrying industrial chemicals. He started working next to Lisa, rolling out dough and spreading it with butter and his tree bark powder. The combination of smells from both projects was creating an atmospheric cocktail that had Kelnara's equipment in full panic mode. The timer rang. Lisa opened the oven and pulled out sheets of golden brown discs that looked nothing like the poison mixture she had put in. Perfect, she said, setting them on racks to cool. The cookies were still releasing chemical compounds into the air. New ones that hadn't existed 20 minutes ago. The humans had literally created new forms of matter and were planning to eat them. Would you like to try one? Lisa asked, holding out a cookie that was still warm. Dr. Zixthera stared at the innocent-looking disc. According to her scanners, it contained at least 17 different toxic compounds, including several that hadn't existed anywhere in the universe until 20 minutes ago. I think, she said carefully, we need to have a very long talk about human biology. Lisa took a bite of her cookie and smiled. These turned out really good. Tony, your cinnamon rolls smell amazing too. Behind them, the scanners continued their warnings about chemical weapons, toxic compounds, and atmospheric contamination. But now, Kelnara was beginning to understand that this wasn't warfare. This was just Tuesday afternoon for the humans. By the fourth day, Dr. Zixthera thought she understood how dangerous human food could be. Then cultural attaché Ben Taylor suggested they demonstrate traditional preserved foods to show how humans stored food safely without technology. Preserved foods are perfect, Jake agreed. They show our peaceful intentions. We've been making them for thousands of years to survive harsh times. Kelnara's new equipment was working overtime just from the leftover cookie smells in the air. What kind of preservation methods do you use? Fermentation mostly, Ben said. We let good bacteria do the work for us. Good bacteria. Kelnara felt her heart skip several beats. You intentionally grow bacteria in your food? Sure, Lisa said, bringing out several large jars from cold storage. I made these last week. Sauerkraut, pickles, and kimchi. She opened the first jar. The smell that came out made every alarm in the kitchen start screaming at once. Biological contamination detected. Live bacterial cultures. Fermentation byproducts identified. Lisa pulled out a long, bumpy green object dripping with liquid. This is a pickle. Just a cucumber that's been sitting in salt water and vinegar for a few days. A few days. Kelnara stared at the thing in Lisa's hand. You let it sit and grow bacteria for days. The bacteria makes it tangy and helps it last longer. Lisa explained, taking a big bite of the pickle. She was eating living bacteria. On purpose, Kelnara watched her scanner as it identified dozens of different bacterial strains, most of which were used in Federation industrial processes. These are the same bacteria we use to clean waste treatment plants, she whispered to Dr. Zixthera, and she's eating them like snacks. Dr. Zixthera whispered back. Lisa opened the second jar and pulled out what looked like rotting plant matter. Sauerkraut, fermented cabbage. Really good for digestion? The smell was even worse than the pickle. Kelnara's equipment identified sulfur compounds, alcohol, and something it labeled as advanced decomposition byproducts. Computer, analyze the bacterial count in the fermented plant matter. Analysis complete. Sample contains approximately 4 billion bacterial organisms per serving. 4 billion. Lisa was about to eat 4 billion living bacteria and seemed happy about it. The third jar was the worst yet. When Lisa opened it, the smell made Pip Talk fall off his observation platform. Kimchi, Lisa said proudly. Korean fermented vegetables. This batch is extra spicy. Extra spicy meant extra capsaicin. But that was the least of Kelnara's worries now. The kimchi contained not just bacteria, but what appeared to be fungi and several types of microorganisms that weren't in any Federation database. Unknown biological. Agents detected. Potential for uncontrolled replication. Ben smiled. My grandmother's recipe. She brought it from Earth when she first moved to the colony. While Lisa was demonstrating her fermented vegetables, sommelier Claire Anderson arrived with a wheeled cart full of bottles. I brought some wine for dinner, she announced. Thought you might like to try some traditional Earth beverages. Wine. Kelnara scanned the bottles from across the room. The readings were immediately alarming. Fermented fruit toxins detected. Ethanol concentration 12 to 15%. Sulfite preservatives identified. What's a sulfite? Dr. Zixthera asked. Kelnara checked her database. Industrial chemical used to prevent bacterial growth. Restricted substance on most Federation worlds. Claire was opening bottles and pouring the liquid into glasses. This is a nice red wine from California, and here's a white wine from France. Each bottle contained enough alcohol to incapacitate most Federation species, plus industrial chemicals that required special handling permits. But Claire was pouring them like they were harmless drinks. How much of this do you consume? Kelnara asked. Oh, maybe a glass or two with dinner, Claire said. Sometimes more on special occasions. A glass or two of industrial solvent with dinner. As a normal part of their daily routine. Jake took a sip of the red wine and smiled. That's really good. Great choice, Claire. The situation got even worse when Lisa announced she had brought cheese to go with the wine. I've got some aged cheddar, blue cheese, and brie, she said, unwrapping packages from her cold storage. The aged cheddar looked normal enough, but when Lisa cut into the blue cheese, Kelnara nearly fainted. The entire inside was covered with blue and green mold. Fungal contamination, active mold growth, biological hazard. It's supposed to look like that, Lisa said. The mold is what gives it flavor. She cut a piece of the moldy cheese and ate it. Actually ate mold that was growing on decomposing milk products. Computer, identify the mold species in the blue cheese. Analysis complete. Penicillium roqueforti detected. Same species used in Federation antibiotic production. The humans were eating the same mold that Federation scientists used to make medicine. They were consuming active pharmaceutical ingredients as a snack food. Ben opened a container of what looked like bread dough, but it was moving slightly. Sourdough starter, he explained. I've been keeping this culture alive for 3 years now. 3 years. He had been nurturing a bacterial colony for 3 years like it was a pet. The bacteria and wild yeast worked together to make the bread rise, Ben continued, stirring the mixture. This particular culture came from San Francisco originally. Kelnara watched the living dough bubble and move. It was full of microorganisms that were actively eating and reproducing, and the humans were planning to heat it up and eat it. You're telling me, she said slowly, that your species has been deliberately cultivating bacterial colonies, consuming fermented toxins, and eating active mold for thousands of years. Pretty much, Lisa said, combining some kimchi with blue cheese on a cracker. It's how we learned to preserve food before refrigeration. Before refrigeration. They had been doing this since before they had technology. This wasn't modern science gone wrong. This was their natural way of life. Dr. Zixthera was taking notes frantically. Computer, estimate the total number of living microorganisms consumed by an average human per day. Calculating. Estimated range. 50 to 100 billion organisms. Per day. 100 billion. Every single day, humans consumed more living bacteria than there were stars in some galaxies. And they didn't just survive it. They needed it to stay healthy. Claire poured herself another glass of wine and raised it in a toast. To new friends and cultural exchange. She drank fermented poison while surrounded by bacterial warfare agents and seemed to be having a wonderful time. Jake raised his own glass. To understanding between species. Kelnara stared at her readings. Understanding? She was beginning to think that true understanding between humans and the rest of the galaxy might be impossible. The humans weren't just adapted to chemical weapons. They were walking biological warfare laboratories who had weaponized their own digestive systems, and they called it dinner. The formal dinner was scheduled for 7 o'clock. By 6:30, the alien crew had sealed themselves into environmental protection suits that made them look like they were exploring a toxic waste site. The humans showed up wearing their nicest clothes and acting like nothing unusual was happening. Dr. Zix watched through her helmet as Lisa arranged what she called a simple, mild dinner on the serving tables. Even through all her protective equipment, she could smell the chemical compounds that were making her scanners flash warning lights. I kept everything really basic, Lisa announced to the room full of suited aliens. Herb-crusted chicken, roasted vegetables, rice pilaf, and fresh dinner rolls. Basic. Kelnara's suit systems were already identifying 17 different toxic compounds just from the smell. Jake Morrison sat down at the head of the table like he was at a normal dinner party. This looks amazing, Lisa. You've really outdone yourself. The chicken was covered in what appeared to be dried plant matter that the scanners identified as multiple biological warfare agents. The vegetables had been heated until they released concentrated sugars and created dozens of new chemical compounds. The rice was mixed with herbs, spices, and what looked like more fermented bacterial cultures. Would anyone like to try some? Lisa asked, holding up a serving spoon. Every alien in the room took a step backward. Dr. Zixithera realized that this couldn't continue. They needed to understand why humans could eat these things while everyone else would die from them. Jake, she said through her suit's communication system, we need to talk about human biology. Jake looked confused. What about it? How do you process these chemical compounds without dying? Chemical compounds? Jake looked at the food on his plate. You mean dinner? Dr. Zixthera pulled out her portable scanner and ran it over Jake's meal. The readings were immediately alarming. Your chicken contains over 40 different organic compounds that are toxic to most Federation species. The herbs alone would put 3/4 of known civilizations in intensive care. Jake cut a piece of chicken and ate it. Tastes good to, me. That's impossible, Kelnara said. Computer, scan the human male for signs of chemical toxicity. Scan complete. Subject shows no adverse reactions, metabolism processing compounds normally. Normally. What was normal for humans would kill almost everyone else in the galaxy. I think, Dr. Zixithera said carefully, we need to understand exactly how different our species really are. She activated her suit's medical scanner and ran a full biological analysis on Jake while he ate his dinner. The results were shocking. Computer, display human liver function analysis. A holographic image appeared showing Jake's internal organs, working to process his food. Dr. Zixithera stared at what she was seeing. Your liver has 7 different detoxification pathways that don't exist in most Federation species, she said in amazement. And 3 backup systems for processing alcohol. Is that unusual? Jake asked, taking a sip of wine. Unusual? It was like discovering that humans had evolved their own internal chemical weapons defense system. Computer, analyze human taste receptor data. More shocking information appeared. You have taste receptors specifically designed to detect and enjoy compounds that are toxic to other species, Dr. Zixithera continued. Capsaicin, caffeine, alcohol, sulfur compounds, your tongues are built to like things that hurt everyone else. Lisa joined Jake at the table with her own plate of chemical weapons disguised as dinner. We do like our flavors, she said happily. Computer, estimate evolutionary timeline for these adaptations. Analysis indicates approximately 50,000 years of consistent exposure to diverse chemical compounds. Species appears to have developed comprehensive toxin resistance through environmental pressure. 50,000 years. The humans hadn't just survived on a death world. They had become living proof that evolution could turn anything into a survival advantage. Your entire digestive system is designed to handle chemical warfare, Kelnara said in wonder. You're not trying to poison us. You literally can't eat anything that wouldn't kill us. Pete Collins arrived carrying his usual cup of coffee. Sorry I'm late. Had to finish some repairs. He sat down and started eating like nothing was wrong. His coffee cup was releasing enough caffeine compounds to put most Federation species into cardiac arrest, but Pete just drank it like water. Computer, calculate total chemical compound intake for average human meal. Calculating. Average human meal contains over 200 distinct chemical compounds, 80% of which are classified as harmful to standard Federation biology. 200 chemical compounds per meal. And they ate 3 meals a day plus snacks. Dr. Zixathera felt her understanding of the universe shift. You're not dangerous because you're trying to be dangerous. You're dangerous because being dangerous is the only way you can stay alive. Jake looked thoughtful. I never really thought about it that way. We just eat what tastes good. What tasted good to humans would kill most other species. Their sense of taste had evolved to guide them toward things that were toxic to everyone else. Claire Anderson raised her wine glass. To new understanding between species. She was toasting with fermented poison while eating chemical weapons, and now Dr. Zixathera understood that this was just how humans showed friendship. Computer, begin new research project. Title, Human Biological Adaptation to Chemical Warfare Environments. Project initiated. Recommended research duration, 5 years minimum. Dr. Zixathera looked around the table at the humans eating their dinner of concentrated toxins and bacterial cultures. They were chatting and laughing like they weren't consuming enough dangerous compounds to sterilize a small laboratory. I have a proposal, she announced through her suit's speakers. The humans looked up from their chemical feast. The Federation would like to study human digestive capabilities. Your species has achieved something we thought was impossible. You've evolved comprehensive resistance to biological and chemical toxins. You want to study how we eat? Lisa asked. We want to understand how you survive, Kelnara corrected. Your species represents a breakthrough in biological adaptation. With your permission, we'd like to learn how to make other species more resistant to toxins. Jake smiled. That sounds like it could help a lot of people. In exchange, Dr. Zixathera continued, we'll establish new protocols for human federation, food interactions, and Lisa, we'd like you to become our first chemical cuisine consultant. Lisa looked confused. What would that involve? Teaching Federation scientists how to make food that's safe for humans without killing everyone else. I can do that, Lisa said, though I might need help figuring out what counts as mild for other species. Tony Rodriguez looked up from his dinner roll. Does this mean we can finally get decent coffee on Federation ships? We'll work on it, Kelnara promised, though she had no idea how they would manage to serve a Class A stimulant as a casual beverage. As the evening continued, Dr. Zixathera watched the humans finish their meal of chemical compounds and bacterial cultures. They were laughing and telling stories, completely unaware that they had just consumed enough toxins to supply a small weapons laboratory. But now she understood. This wasn't warfare. This was evolution. The humans had turned their death worlds, attempts to kill them, into the foundation of their entire civilization. And somehow that made them the most remarkable species the Federation had ever encountered. 6 months later, Dr. Zixathera published her research paper, Deathworld Adaptation, How Humans Became Living Chemical Processing Units. It became the most read scientific document in Federation history. Lisa's first cookbook, Cooking for Species That Haven't Evolved on Deathworlds, was translated into 47 languages and came with mandatory safety warnings. And somewhere, In Federation space, scientists began working on Project Deathworld Vegetable, hoping to improve their own species' survival capabilities through controlled exposure to what humans called mild seasoning. The universe had become a more interesting place.